wearing zebra print on a zebra sofa. And then my friend pointed out, it reminded her of another music video I did for Kaiko in 2019, where this couple is making out in all pink on a all pink sofa.
But it then noted that there were also other similarities, like a part where Selena and the dancers are all in white while eating, and then a short film with a similar composition, but everyone's drinking, as well as a similar shot of people using old cameras on apparently the same balcony, similar framing and shots of a staircase, similar font use, kind of the list goes on here. And in her TikTok, Sarah kind of acknowledges sort of fine line between inspiration and copying, and also saying she knows that she can't claim the location it was shot at, but also saying that this situation has happened to her and other independent artists before. In fact, this isn't even the only time she's had an issue with Selena Gomez, right? Because back in 2018, people noticed similarities between promotional photos Selena used for her Back to You music video and work Sarah had done. So after this latest incident, Sarah talked to others in the industry and felt compelled to speak out.
What I'm about to share happens so often to women of color in this industry. And in this instance, I am an independent artist, but I'm also a Palestinian woman. Oftentimes, white women or men will get hired as directors when I'm front and center of their mood board. And I know that through facts, not speculation, because eventually information has a way of coming out of the woodwork.
Right, Sarah also claiming that the director of Selena's video doesn't even usually shoot in this style or aesthetic, which could make it all the more suspicious, like maybe he was told to do his version of Sarah's work. Right? And so with this, she wanted to ask the world, when does someone cross the line from being inspired by something to using that work without permission and ripping it off? What we've seen since is that video has prompted a ton of responses. We're seeing lots of people pissed off at Selena Gomez, though we've also seen a lot of fans jumping to her defense, right, accusing Sarah of reaching, some saying that Selena was just drawing from French films starring Brigitte Bardot. The situation seemingly getting heavy for Sarah, right? She had to turn off her Instagram comments because of the hate. Though this notably as some big names seemingly have showed support. People like Noah Centineo and Rami Youssef liking her post on Instagram. But with all that said, and as the story continues to develop, I gotta pass the question off to you. What are your thoughts here? And then, in big international entertainment and relations news, let's talk about Taylor Swift and Singapore. Because right now, she's in the middle of performing 6 shows in Singapore, and those shows have actually caused a lot of tension in Southeast Asia. Some would say it has stirred bad blood, perhaps increased the likelihood of a cruel summer. Or there may be so much bad karma here that people just can't shake it off. I hate myself for all 4 of those jokes. But the reason for that is those 6 Singapore shows are her only stops in Southeast Asia, and it turns out that's not an accident. Because Singapore actually offered her incentives to make it the only stop in the area, and by incentives, I mean money. With reports of this deal starting before she even got to Singapore, with tons of neighboring countries pissed the hell off. Because their shows aren't just this fun thing for fans, they are massive economic opportunities. I mean, y'all, the Taylor Swift Eras Tour boosted the US economy by close to $5 billion. Every city she stopped in saw a huge spending boost. So naturally, everyone wants a piece of that Taylor Swift Eras Tour pot. But now the only country in the area that got those awards was Singapore, which has absolutely gotten slammed by politicians in countries like the Philippines, where one representative said that this isn't what good neighbors do. Our countries are good friends. Noting that on top of the Philippines not getting the show, it meant that their Swifties had to travel out of the country to go. And as far as how much this grant was allegedly worth, right now we're seeing conflicting reports, with the Thai Prime Minister saying it was a whopping $3 million per show. This, as Singapore's culture minister said, it's nowhere near as high as reports have suggested. The Channel News Asia saying it was closer to $2 to $3 million in total for all 6 shows. But right now, the exact figure is unknown. Right, and amid all the speculation and the backlash on Tuesday, notably you had Singapore's Prime Minister confirming the existence of the deal and then defending it, because he was apparently asked about it while attending a summit in Australia, with Reuters reporting that he responded, "Our agencies negotiated an arrangement with her to come to Singapore and perform and to make Singapore her only stop in Southeast Asia. It has turned out to be a very successful arrangement. I don't see that as being unfriendly." The New York Times reporting that he added, "If we had not made such an arrangement, would she have come to someplace else in Southeast Asia or more places in Southeast Asia? Maybe, maybe not." And notably, he said this was funded by a post-COVID tourism recovery effort. You also had the Times speaking to a source who noted that this kind of agreement is called a radius clause, and saying while they are actually a standard in the industry, this one's a little bit different, because usually it's to get exclusivity within a few hundred miles of a city, not barring entire countries from hosting a concert as well. But this also, as you had one professor telling the outlet, that of all the places for Taylor to stop in the region, Singapore just makes the most sense because it's safe for young women and has great transit access to the rest of the area. People also noting that Taylor stopped there before, and during one of her Eras shows there, she revealed that she has a familial tie as her mother spent part of her childhood there. But this is notable not only because there is a debate around whether Singapore was right or wrong for this deal, but also it brings up the question of, is this going to become more common in the future? And there we've seen differences, some speaking to CNBC, calling this strategic, comparing it to when countries vie for the rights to host major sporting events. But this also, as others have argued, that it is selfish to screw over neighboring economies. But where do you land on this? And then Nintendo just did it. Some of y'all successfully called it. Nintendo killed Yuzu, right? That Nintendo Switch emulator that we talked about last week. Despite long-standing protections for emulators, the company behind it has decided to fold and kill off not only Yuzu, but also another emulator it makes for the 3DS. And on top of that, it'll also be destroying and deleting hardware and software that made Yuzu possible. possible. Although notably, the internet is still the internet, and most of it is floating around on the internet already. Also, the settlement has them paying Nintendo $2.4 million and admitting that Yuzu is, quote, primarily designed to circumvent and play Nintendo Switch games, which was probably thrown in for safe measure since a judge still needs to approve this settlement. And as far as what the company is saying in a post on their Discord, you had a lead developer going into more detail about the situation, although it kind of reads like a gun was pointed to their head, saying, "We see now that because our projects can circumvent Nintendo's technological protection measures and allow users to play games outside of authorized hardware, they have led to extensive piracy. In particular, we have been deeply disappointed when users have used our software to leak game content prior to its release and ruin the experience for legitimate purchasers and fans." Now, despite that, there are theories out there that user developers admitted to knowing the piracy was rampant and possibly condoned it privately. And if those messages existed and they got out as part of discovery during the suit, very likely would have doomed them as well. So instead, we're just seeing them fold. Though again, technically this is not over. A judge still needs to approve all of this, although it's incredibly unlikely they wouldn't. And also, it's not like this is the complete end of Yuzu or other emulators, right? People still have them floating around all over the place. Though this does damage the idea that there are reliable and safe emulators out there. Because as people who are obviously not me, who have dabbled in this space, they'll tell you that at times it's very hard to find an emulator that isn't plagued with malware. But with this news, we are seeing some people say, there is a silver lining here. Because Yuzu bit the bullet and settled, there won't be a precedent set. So at least on paper, emulators are still good to go. Although this entire thing has made it very clear that unless a company has the funds to fight off Nintendo, they probably won't be around for long. And then, I'm the kind of guy that when it comes to certain things, I don't understand what a big deal it is. Like with bedding. Like when I was a younger Philip DeFranco, didn't get the big deal. And then eventually, I got nicer sheets. I kind of got it. And then I was introduced to the sheets from Cozy Earth. Game changing doesn't even sum it up. There is nothing quite like crawling into the most comfortable sheets and just laying there. And with Cozy Earth, I feel like I'm lying in a hug. So I want to thank the fantastic sponsor of today's show, Cozy Earth, because this brand is giving you the softest, most luxurious feeling fabric guaranteed. Yes, really, you don't love Cozy Earth sheets? You have 100 days to get your money back. And you can't miss their awesome joggers and hoodies. They're like taking the bed with you during your day. They feel as soft and cozy as the sheets made with viscose from bamboo. And get this, Cozy Earth sheets are naturally temperature regulating and moisture wicking, so you'll stay more comfortable year round. And from someone who runs hot, that is a great selling point. Also, your sheets are one of the most washed items, or guys, they should be one of your most washed items. And especially with these, you don't have to worry because they're so durable that the fabric doesn't pill even after all the washing and drying. They just keep getting softer and better and more comfortable. So are you looking for comfort in your life? Well, all you gotta do is go to cozyearth.com/DeFranco and enter DeFranco to get up to 35% off at checkout. That's cozyearth.com/DeFranco. And then right now there's this big question when it comes to cars that you've maybe never thought of. At what point is there just too much tech in that thing? Right? Because for the European New Car Assessment Program, which tests car safety features, they're saying we're already at that point. And in particular, they're tired of cars having more and more controls on touchscreens and said in a recent statement, the overuse of touchscreens is an industry-wide problem, with almost every vehicle maker moving key controls onto central touchscreens, obliging drivers to take their eyes off the road and raising the risk of distraction crashes. And adding new Euro NCAP tests due in 2026 will encourage manufacturers to use separate physical controls for basic functions in an intuitive manner, limiting eyes off road time and therefore promoting safer driving. And of course, with this, that doesn't mean that touchscreens are going to die, or they just want key features like your horn, hazard lights, turn signals, and windshield wipers to be dedicated physical controls on the car. But some of the cars that predominantly have this problem being Teslas, right? Versions are coming out that have things like their turn signals on the steering wheel itself as haptic buttons, which the Euro NCAP isn't a fan of. But here's the thing, they are not a government agency, so they don't actually have the power to force car companies to change. But they are a highly respected safety testing company, and a 5-star rating is a huge selling point for manufacturers. So while they can't force them, they will be trying to pressure these car manufacturers, with them trying to promote change by dinging points off of cars that don't have those physical controls. While that likely wouldn't make it so that a car would fail any safety test, it could make it far more difficult to get those coveted 5 stars. Also, for the majority of Americans that are watching, we have a similar system here in the States, right? It's called the Highway Safety's Top Safety Pick. But as of right now, our version of this group, they've yet to care about touchscreens. So that, at the same time as there's actually been consumer pushback in the States that have led to manufacturers actually adding buttons and knobs back. And that's because in addition to consumers actually wanting them, studies by a group like AAA have found that touchscreens are probably pretty dangerous, with AAA finding that touchscreens could distract drivers for upwards of 40 seconds at a time. You're talking about half a mile at 50 miles an hour. And so with this, I gotta ask, if you have a car that has a touchscreen or, a lot of its features on a touchscreen, does it bother you? Do you think it's less safe, or are you just now thinking about that now? And do you think that this is something that we're gonna see legislation legislation on. I've seen some people kind of compare the touchscreen situation with texting and driving back in '05. Right? Technically, you were allowed to text and drive, and everyone kind of knew that it was dangerous. But then one, it took lawmakers a while to actually crack down on it, and two, even longer for police to consistently pull people over for it. And three, if you ever look out your windows, it appears that, everyone is still texting and driving. So I imagine the rate is drastically different from when it was legal. And then, in massive legal news, we are seeing a huge fight play out between Texas, the federal government, and the courts. Because we just saw the Supreme Court temporarily block enforcement of a Texas law that would allow state and local police to arrest migrants, even if they're seeking asylum. Now, of course, with that, it is already illegal to enter the country without authorization under federal